बलहारी। कितने नाम तेरे नटवर तू सांवल कृष्ण मुरारी। जग पालक तू रास रचैया गोवर्धन गिरधारी। कितने नाम तेरे नटवर तू सांवल कृष्ण मुरारी। और मुकुट मनहर लेवत बलहारी है ब्रजबाला। मुरलीधर गोपाला घनश्याम नंद के लाला। जय गोविंदा गोपाला मनमोहन श्याम कन्हैया। मुरलीधर गोपाला घनश्याम नंद के लाला। सागर में रमता तू ही धरती पाताल। जल में नभ में और जगत में तेरी जय जयकार। तू ही सागर में रमता तू ही धरती पाताल। जल में नभ में और जगत में तेरी जय जयकार। मेरे मन मंदिर में स्वामी तुझसे ही उजियारा। जग में उसका मीत कन्हैया। बंसी बजैया रास रचैया काली नाग नथैया। जिसका कोई नहीं इस जग में उसका मीत कन्हैया। बंसी बजैया रास रचैया काली नाग नथैया। राजा हो या दीन भिखारी सबका तू रखवाला। मुरलीधर गोपाला घनश्याम नंद के लाला। जय गोविंदा गोपाला मनमोहन श्याम कन्हैया। मुरलीधर गोपाला घनश्याम नंद के लाला। जय गोविंदा गोपाला मनमोहन श्याम कन्हैया। मुरलीधर गोपाला घनश्याम नंद के लाला। मुरलीधर गोपाला घनश्याम नंद के लाला। मुरलीधर गोपाला घनश्याम नंद के लाला।
केशवा माधवा जय देवा मधुसूदना।
केशवा
माधवा जय देवा मधुसूदना। केशवा माधवा
Oh, okay.
ठीक है। पूज्य महाराज जी आ रहे हैं। ओम हरि ओम स्वस्ति न इंद्रो इधस्सर्वाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्ददातु बृहदस्वा मरुतः वृष्णिमातरः शुभम जावानो विदाथे खुजगमय्यः अग्निर्जिह्वा मनवः सूरचक्षुषो विश्वेनो देवा अवशागमन्निह भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवा भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्जत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गे उष्ट्वागुंसस्तनु भिर्वशे महि देवहितं यदा युः सतमिन्नु शरदो अन्तिदेवा जत्रा न शक्रा जरशन्तनूनाम् उत्तरासो जत्रा पितरो भवन्ति मानो मदीयारीरिखता युर्गन्तो अदितिर्द्योरदितिरन्तरिक्ष मदित्रिं माता सपिता सपुत्रः विश्वे देवा अदितिः पञ्चजना अदितिर्जातमदितिर्जनित्वं द्योः शान्तिरन्तरिक्षगुं शान्तिः पृथिवी शान्तिरापः शान्तिरोषधयः शान्तिः वनस्पतयः शान्तिर्विश्वे देवाः शान्ति ब्रह्म शान्तिः सर्वगुं शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः सामा शान्तिरेधिः। ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ब्रह्मण्यदेवाय गौब्राह्मणहिताय च जगद्धिताय कृष्णाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। अज्ञानातिमिराधस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। व्यासाय व्यासरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वे ब्रह्मनिधये वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रयविनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचारूणमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय हरये परमात्मने प्रणतक्लेशनाशाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। बोले सद्गुरुदेव भगवान की जय, व्यास जी महाराज की जय, श्रीमद्-भागवत महापुराण की जय, सत्य सनातन धर्म की जय।
लगी नहीं, ठीक है।
हे राम मेरे मन राम पर बसे। हे राम मेरे मन राम बसे। मेरे मन श्याम बसे। मेरे मन राम बसे। हे राम मेरे मन राम बसे। राम नाम जप लीजे प्राणी। 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 कौतिक पात कदे। कौतिक पात कदे। मेरे मन राम बसे। राम मेरे मन राम बसे। मेरे मन श्याम बसे। मेरे मन राम बसे। जन्म जन्म की अत जो पुरानी। 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 नाम हिलाते कते। नाम हिलाते कते। मेरे मन राम बसे। हे राम मेरे मन राम बसे। मेरे मन श्याम बसे। मेरे मन राम बसे। राम 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 बोलो राम राम राम।
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 श्याम 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 बोलो श्याम श्याम श्याम।
श्याम 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 बोलो श्याम श्याम श्याम।
श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम।
श्याम 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 राधे श्याम श्याम श्याम।
राम 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 बोलो राम राम राम।
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 सभी लोग खड़े हो जाएं, आरती करेंगे। Let us all please stand. भागवत आरती।
दिखाने वाला, ये शांति गीत पावन पुनीत पापों को मिटाने वाला, हरि दर्श दिखाने वाला, ये सुख करनी है दुख हरनी, बोलो ये सुख करनी है दुख हरनी, ये मधुसूदन आरती,
पापियों को पाप से तारती,
भागवत
भगवान की है आरती, पापियों को पाप से तारती।
ये मध घोल जग बंद खोल समाज दिखाने वाला, बिगड़ी को बनाने वाला,
ये मधुर बोल जग बंद खोल समाज दिखाने वाला, बिगड़ी को बनाने वाला,
श्री राम यही घनश्याम यही,
श्री राम यही घनश्याम यही,
सबके महिमा की आरती,
पापियों को पाप से तारती, ये भागवत भगवान की है आरती, पापियों को पाप से तारती, पापियों को पाप से तारती।
कृष्ण कन्हैयालाल की
जय।
जय। सभी लोग आसन लीजिए। एवरीवन प्लीज बी सीटेड। मन ध्यान करो। We focus our minds upon the Divine Lord as we contemplate Bhagavan in all the forms that we know. We bring man, shanti, the mind at peace. And as we glorify the Lord with invocations, Om Sri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri
सरस्वती नमः।
Om
श्री गुरु चरण कमले
ध्येयं सदा परिभवग्नभीष्टदोहम् तीर्थास्पदं शिववीरं सिनित्वं शरण्यम् भृत्यार्तिहं प्रणतपालभवानिपोतं वन्दे महापुरुषते चरणारविन्दं वन्दे महापुरुषते चरणारविन्दम् वंशी विभूषित करान नवनीरदाबा पीताम्बरधुंड बिंबफलाधरोष्टा पूर्णेन्द्र सुंदर मुखाद विंद नेत्र कृष्णा परम किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जानामि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वती व्यासं ततो मुदीरते ततो जयमुदीरते। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रविनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नमः। श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नमः। जय जय श्री राधारमण जय जय नव किशोर जय गोपी चित चोर प्रभु जय जय माखन चोर जय जय माखन चोर। बोलो वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे।
मन ध्यान करो और मुख से मुस्कुराएं। There must be a smile on your face while you contemplate the Divine Lord. Let it be a pleasant state of mind that you sing the praises of Bhagavan. Jai Radhe Radhe Govind Govind Radhe
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद राधे
Govind Radhe Radhe Gopal Radhe
गोविंद राधे राधे गोपाल राधे
गोविंद राधे राधे गोपाल राधे
गोविंद राधे राधे गोपाल राधे
राधे राधे गोविंद गोविंद 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 राधे
गोविंद राधे गोपाल राधे
गोविंद राधे गोपाल राधे
गोविंद Jai Jai Sri Radhe, Jai Jai Sri Radhe,
Jai Jai Shri Radhe.
Krishna Kanhaiya Lal ki Satchidananda Rupa Vishwotpatyaditaye Tapatra Vinashaya Sri Krishnaya Vayam Namah Sri Krishnaya Vayam Namah. सभी लोग स्वागत है. We welcome everyone to the second night of this Bhagavad Katha. But before I proceed, I would like to ask Indira to do her formal proceedings.
Namaste and Sitaram, everyone. Welcome to all of you for joining us on the second night of our annual Bhagavad Katha. Last night, for those of you who joined us in person and those of you who watched on social media, you would have learned about how this journey is going to take its process over the next few days. And as Pandaji mentioned, he spoke about this 7 days that we are now involved in Bhagavad Katha and listening to the glories of Lord Krishna. We are also taking part in a spiritual checkup. We know we go to the doctor and we get a medical checkup, or we're supposed to get a medical checkup every year. But how often do we take time to check in and make sure that we are spiritually connected to God? How often do we take the time to develop that part of our well-being? And so over the course of these next few nights, you are checked in here at, I would say, the Mississauga Mandir Medical Clinic. And you're checked in for the next few days in order for you to develop your well-being and sense of spirituality over the next few days. Yesterday we learned about Raja Parikshit, and today that story is going to continue, but we heard that he was an individual who was a very great king, but he also was a human being, and he allowed his emotions and his anger to get the better of him. And today you will learn more about how that story continues on. And we also learned about Bhakti, Jnana, and Viraga, three of the characters who begin this story, this journey that we are starting as we learn more about Bhagavatam and what they represent. They represent, in our spiritual well-being, Bhakti, of course, is devotion, Jnana is knowledge, and Viraga is detachment. So those three attributes are very important towards our journey, becoming more spiritually stronger, more spiritually confident in ourselves, and creating a stronger connection with God. So today we continue our journey, and of course we are led by our very, very learned and very talented Pandaji Pandarupnath Sharma. And of course, those of you who are joining us for the first time, we hope that you will join us again over the course of this evening as we go on this spiritual medical checkup together. Namaste and Sitaram.
Dhanyavad. Let's give Indira a big hand, please. She has reflected on yesterday's katha excellently. When I chanted Satchidananda Rupaya, it is a glorification to Bhagavan Krishna, and where in that glorification it is declared that that Lord that we know as the Supreme Lord is the reliever of the three miseries that faces humanity. There are only three types of misery. They are grouped, the three types. We may feel them in different ways. Misery is brought on by natural disasters, like an earthquake, or storm, or tsunami. We have no way of controlling the power of such calamities, and we are all victims. And then the pain and misery that is brought on by enmityship, those who will, without any consideration, do things to hurt us or bring us pain and misery. Again, we have no control over those things. And then there's a third type of miseries. It's called self-inflicted miseries. The entire Bhagavatam is intended to help humanity to understand what these self self-inflicted miseries are and how to overcome or avoid them. Overcome and avoiding the miseries that are brought upon us is a challenge of human existence. We're all granted life, liberty. We have water, food, clothing and shelter. We have education. We have knowledge granted unto us. And we are infused with moral values. How we use these resources that are granted to us determines whether we inflict misery upon ourselves or we avoid this misery totally. When we reflect on Raja Parikshit, India said that he was a man of great caliber, but yet his emotions were not in the right frame of mind. And we need to understand that as much as we pray, as much as we do the best with good intentions, sometimes we are surprised at ourselves of what things we did that was not really the way we wanted to be. And this is where our scripture tells us that we are victims of the gunas. We are victims of our tamogun, rajogun or satogun. These gunas in modern day psychology are called id, ego and superego. As human beings, we cannot avoid them. It comes with a package. But the challenge is, throughout our lives, is to rise above the tamasic or rajasic tendencies and to exist in the sattvic state. Raja Parikshit was a man who is known to exist in the sattvic state. He is known to be very, very caring, understanding, respectful, an honorable man. This same Raja Parikshit degraded himself to what we will call the tamasic and rajasic state when he came into contact with the great Rishi, Simika. Simika, the Rishi, was in meditation. Raja Parikshit was a hungry, thirsty, tired, and frustrated man. All of us are being victims of this at one time or the other. Well, not so much thirsty, but hungry, tired, and frustrated. And at that time, we usually said, don't talk to me, not now. And that is when we are in our tamasic state. And then when someone tries to advise us, then we say that, don't tell me I know everything. Then we are in our rajasic state, our egotistical state. And think carefully. You may smile to yourself. All of us have experienced these conditions from time to time. I can tell you, I'm an expert at it. So, but we must understand that we have these conditions and that we can rise above them. Raja Parikshit was a victim of that stressful condition that all of us as human beings endure in our lives, whether in the job, the family relationship, or driving our cars. When someone just runs across or swipes across our vehicle, at that moment, we are tamasic and we want to kill them. And then our rajasic says, you know, I know better. And then our sattvic says, I'll get charged. And then we come back to calm. Raja Parikshit, in a moment of tamas and rajas, pronounced an act of total unintelligible, not within his character. He respects Brahmins and Rishis and Munis, and yet he took anger and took a dead snake, picked his bow, lifted up the snake and tossed it over the neck of the Brahmin in meditation. And as he was leaving, he, in his own arrogance, said, that was to prove that whether he was really pretending or he was really meditating. Now that's arrogance. And all of us are guilty of this arrogance from time to time. But we must remember that when we are engaged in an act of arrogance, influenced by our tamasic or rajasic nature, it's karma. And whatever we do, we will reap the benefit. For every action, there's an equal reaction. The laws of physics says, if I throw a rock into the air, what will happen to it? Will it continue to go? What will happen? Marissa? It'll fall to the earth. I better make sure I move away from the rock. I'll fall on my head. But it may fall on someone else's head. And if it does, I will tell a little story that's very close to being real. In one of my homes where I lived, one day I was out in the backyard playing with a ball, tossing it in the air and catching. And my next door neighbor was having a picnic. And they were having friends over, and they had a very big spread buffet outside. And the next door neighbor was fancied herself a great cook. And I could overhear in the background, she was telling everybody about this wonderful stew that she made. It was one of those stews, you know. But she was saying she is good at this, and she got the recipe from her grandmother and everybody. And people were saying, ooh, ah. And I tossed the ball up in the air, and guess where it fell? Come on, guess. Into the stew. You can imagine the stew that occurred after that. Well, I didn't intend to drop the ball in the stew. I was tossing the ball up in the air. I could have said I'm sorry. I did say I'm sorry. I begged, but I couldn't change the condition of the stew. The stew was gone. So yes, it's easy to say we are sorry, but in forethought, we must always consider that every action that we take, there is an equal reaction. And saying sorry may not be good enough, but saying sorry is also a way of bringing our ego down. Some of us will have tossed the ball up in the air and have it drop in the stew and says, who cares? I didn't tell him to have this stew over there. That's arrogance going to the highest form. Raja Parikshit is presenting to the world these tendencies of human nature. And we need to think carefully. As I mentioned, the reason we listen to Bhagavat, and as Indira mentioned, as we go for regular checkups, Bhagavat is our spiritual checkup. By listening, we learn about ourselves. And Raja Parikshit is throughout this Bhagavatam. He's the man who's sitting listening to all the stories being told. But why is he doing that? We will discuss that tonight. But I want to dwell a little bit on this human tendency that we're all victims of. When Raja Parikshit placed his snake on the neck of the Rishi and he rode away, the world became aware of his action. The Rishi, by the way, was still sedentary state in meditation. The snake around his neck did not bother him. He continued to meditate. What does the Rishi represent in relationship to human nature when we see Raja Parikshit as animalistic, or the ego, or the id, and ego, tamasic and rajasic? What does the Rishi, who was unmoved by any of this, what state does he represent? Now there's three states. Bolo? Sattvic state, or the superego state. He represented that state whereby I'm in meditation. And I'm in meditation. I'm in meditation. I will not be affected by the external world and its activities, and that it will break away my connection to divinity. Now, we are not all in meditation of our lives, but we all have a connection to divinity. And when we throw that connection to divinity away and we progress or we evolve to a state of anger, greed and false pride with great animosity, we have drifted away from our sattvic state. But the Katha is presenting both sides of the coin. Here, a person who is of a sattvic nature has turned rajasic and tamasic. Raja Parikshit is described as a good person, but yet he moved to a state where he was not. And yet, Simika Rishi maintained his status regardless of the atrocities against him. Some of us are affected by the atrocities, some of us are not easily or affected at all. This is the state that we want to rise to. Yashmanu udvijate loko, loko na udvijate. Harshamarasha bhayodvegai, mukto se yatsa satcha vipriya. Bhagavan Krishna says that individual who does nothing intentionally to disturb the minds of others and who does not allow the actions of others to disturb their minds, says satcha vipriya. He said that is the one that loves me and my love abounds in them. Rishi Simika represents that devotee. Now we all must strive for this status in our lives. Where Vyas Bhagavan tells us that after this action, has happened. The world gets to know Raja Parikshit is now going through some soul searching, of course. He's moved off and gone back to the kingdom. And what is happening? Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah. Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah. The king is in his palace and he's reflecting upon his actions that day. Ekakim nibrista sesa karuno milite sanam mirsa samadhir aho vit kimnusyat chastra bandhuvi kimnusyat chastra bandhuvi Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah. Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah. Now, is the king thinking that did I do a wrong thing? No, what is he doing? He's trying to justify his action. In his thoughts, he's saying, I think he was pretending. He wasn't really meditating. I'm sure of that. When you're in an egotistical state, you seek to blame others for your action. You seem to place the responsibility on the shoulders of others. But when you're in a sattvic state, you place no blame on anyone. Here, he has committed an act. And he's trying to justify that his act was justified because the other person was doing something they shouldn't be doing. Does this sound familiar? It is human nature. And that is why this Bhagavad Katha is being told for over the ages. It is the book of life. It has all the formulas to overcome all challenges, and it's all the formulas to live a righteous life. Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah. Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah. Meanwhile, the news of this atrocity by Raja Parikshit to Simika, who Simika is unaware of, but the news gets to around the world. Around the neighborhood, around the village. By the way, Raja Parikshit threw a snake over Misika's neck. Did you all know that? And of course, you know how this thing goes. Before you know it, the grapevine was up and running well. And the news came to his son, who was away in distance, playing with his friends. His son is a very, very revered, to grow up to be a very revered Rishi, Shringi Rishi. And this son heard of this atrocity against his father. And what happened then? Tasya putro tite javasi viharan balako rambaka ranjanam prapta pitam tatam srutva taredam avravit Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya all of the friends gathered together and were telling him, did you know what happened? You know what the king did to your father? And so on and so on. And he was listening and becoming very, very angry and hurt that someone would do respectful things to his father. Having this dialogue with his friends, he continued to ponder. Aho adharma palanam Pivinam bali bhujam ivam Swabhina agam yada dasananam Dvarampanam sunamiva Dvarampanam sunamiva Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah. Just picture this, that you, in your own environment, when you were a young person, if someone was to come and tell you that somebody offended or hurt one of your relatives, who do you think? Who do they think they are? That they can treat my family like this? And you will come up with all the ridicule for them. Sringi Rishi is doing the same thing. He's saying, these kings, they think they're gods. But they forgot that we Brahmins made them gods. We gave them the privilege to be who they are, and now they're treating us with disrespect. How does he respond to this situation? Not calmly, not cool, not with any analytical of what the situation is. He has jumped to a conclusion. And what has he done? He's done the greatest of sins. He's passed judgment. Many of you have heard me said this before. Don't judge, don't prosecute, only appreciate. Appreciate and understand. Now he missed out on LTDR totally. Right, Marissa? Listen, think about what you heard, decide, and then react. He reacted without even any analogy. What state of mind is he showing to the world? Come on, tell me now. It's certainly not sattvic. Is it tamasic? Is very ignorant and very egotistical. He declares what kind of people, who do they think they are? His ego, and then his actions of just not considering anything, just getting angry. Tamas and Rajas is dominant. As we go through this katha, look at our lives and ask ourselves, how often do we see ourselves in these conditions where Tamas and Rajas status is there? Where we ask Bhagavan continues to tell us. Of course, he continues to ridicule the king without being in his presence. And he goes on to say that since Krishna left the world, all of these kings believe they are gods. He left, he was the divine Lord, but the kings have now feel that they are God. Again, ridicule and anger. He proceeded in this state and became even more angry. Iti ukvaru satamaraksho vyasyan rishi balaka kausik apa uparishya Bhagavatam visaraja Bhagavatam visaraja Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah. Many of us, when we get angry, our eyes get red. Similarly, his eyes got red. He was full of rage. And he's declaring right now, he's about to make a declaration in front of his friends to let them know that he will take action. All of us do this from time to time. We show our prowess. And as such, what does he do? It seems like thunder was roaring. Thunder. With this anger and rage, he declared, Iti langita maryadam takshaka saptame hani dhanashakti samakalangaram kuritomi tatadhuram Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah. According to Vedas, he discharged a thunderbolt of words, declaring that I will show him my power. And he was told that this Rishi had the power to pronounce a curse. And by the way, we are told, Brahmins, curses, watch it. I want you to know I do not have power of curse. Not yet anyway. Maybe in my next janam. But this power of curse he had, and he declared that he will command the king of the serpents, Takshak, to proceed and bite this king 7 days from now and poison him, and he will die. So it's a death sentence, and Raja Parikshit had 7 days to live. If this was to happen to you, and you are Raja Parikshit, what would you do? There is a beautiful katha that tells us of how we can prepare for the worst scenario. There's a mythological kingdom whereby every year they change the king. But they change the king by every year when his reign finishes, they take him to an island forested area and they tie him to trees and they let the wild animals devour him. But for 1 year, he's king and total ruler. So no one wants to become king, obviously. So this wise man came along one day and says, what's happening? Why isn't anyone king? And he says, well, you become king and after 1 year, they take you to the forest and tie you to the trees and the animals devour you. And then the man says, so when you're king, are you total ruler? He said, yes. You have absolute power? Yes. He says, can I be king? You sure? You know what will happen at the end? He said, yeah, no problem. So, the coronation ceremonies were done and he was anointed king. And his first edict, he called upon all the woodcutters of the kingdom to present themselves with their axe. And he ordered them to proceed to the island and cut down all the trees and plant a flower garden and to kill all the animals. When the end of the year came, he said, make a throne over there too, by the way. He moved from one throne to the other throne. Do we prepare for the other throne, the other kingdom? And the kingdom that comes after that? Do we clear away the jungle by taking away the evil from our mind? Do we kill the animals, that we are the animalistic nature? Do we prepare a kingdom that will go from one kingdom to another? These are the questions that we will hear that confronts Raja Parikshit as he's now have a sentence of death pronounced upon him. Mukunda Madhava Govinda Bol Kesava Madhava Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Let's return now to Simika, the Rishi that was in meditation. What happened to him? Raja Parikshit is in his kingdom, in his palace, contemplating and justifying his action. The young son has declared a curse upon the king. The man who was ill-treated hasn't done anything yet. He's still meditating. We come to him and Ved-Vyas and Sri Sukdev-ji and all the great sages are relating this katha as I'm relating to you. Let's see what happens now. The son, of course, in this state of anger, runs to his father and proceeds to present himself. Sava Agniraso Brahmanam Srutva Suta Vilapanam Ummilaya Sankarane Tre Dravakame Se Mritoragam Dravakame Se Mritoragam Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Govindaya Namo Namah.
Sri
Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah.
The young son comes running, crying loudly to his father, and his son's crying awakens the father. Before that, he was not awakened. And of course, in his awakeness, he realized that the snake around his neck, he just tossed it away. And then asked his son, why are you crying? What's happening? The son, of course, is in total stressed anxiety state. And what does he do? Brij jayate cha prachancha Vasta kama dhirodisi Kenavati patram Ityuktasana vedayat Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Govindaya Namo Namah.
The father became anxious about the welfare of his son and said, my son, why are you crying? And of course, his son started to explain to his father what had happened. In his explanation, the father listened to everything that was said, and how did he respond? The father, the man of wisdom, speaks in response to his son's action. Nishmamaya saptam tadadaram narindram sabrahmano natmajam avyanandat aho batamo maha adete tiram alipya sidro urudamadrita Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Govindaya Namo Namah.
Sri
Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah.
The Rishi immediately says, how dare you pronounce a curse on such a noble man? Do you know who this man is? Do you know anything about him? He's our king, by the way. You're his subject. How could you dare curse him? The father didn't congratulate the son. Good job, son, you defended me. No, he did not do that. He was about to counsel his son for his actions. Calm and serenity at his pinnacle. In listening to his son and responding, he says, but on the contrary, he did not compliment his son. He began to ask him, and say to him, do you know what sinful act you have committed? Do you know the consequences of your action? You've taken an action out of anger and you say he will die in 7 days. Do you have somebody to replace him? We need a good king. Do you have somebody to replace him in his family? Do you know how much he has contributed to society? Do you know all the good deeds he's doing? Will you replace all of that? We must think carefully of the consequences of our actions. Not only limited, but beyond our simple vision. Yes, you pronounce the curse, you will die. So what happens next? Are you going to take his responsibilities? Will you carry his burdens? Will you shoulder his simplicity? Will you understand his role and responsibilities? You know, many people want to get rid of me from this Mandir, but they are not doing it because they can't find somebody to replace me right now. But as soon as they find someone, they'll get rid of me. Sometimes people think they can do without the people who are good to them, but the problem is they can't find somebody to replace them, so they kind of sit, they're stuck with that. Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Govindaya Namo Namah. Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah.
The Rishi is presenting to the world what the laws of the land promotes. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty. No trial, no presentation of witnesses or evidence was done by Shringi. He decided, he declared, he passed judgment and proceeded to execute the judgment all on his own. This is against the law of the land, against the laws of humanity, against all moral conduct of humanity. His father said, my son, you've done all of these things. How could you have done this? How could you, my son, could have done these things? You see, the question of that everyone must be given the benefit of the doubt at all time comes into play. Did the king give the Rishi the benefit of the doubt? No. So what is he reaping? The same kind of action. Someone is taking action against him without giving him the benefit of the doubt. So you give, so you shall receive. Instantly. By the way, the person who has been, the atrocities have been committed against is clear. Have nothing to do. Third parties are making all of the troubles, and the man in the middle who's afflicted is saying, what are you guys fighting about? Why are you doing this? The king cannot sleep now at night, and the young man has now been scolded by his father. I just said the Brahmin's curse cannot be reversed. It has to go through. And as such, that Brahmin will have to pay for his karma. Radha Parikshit will have to pay for his karma. And Simika, what karma does he have? He's taken zero action. Has he taken zero action? Is inaction no action? Is inaction not action? By doing nothing, is that not the best action there is? The course of action is to do nothing. Some people say when you're doing nothing, that means you're doing nothing. No, no, no. At this time, Simika thought it's better that I do not do anything. I scold my son and I pray for the king. And that's precisely what he did. Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Govindaya Namo Namah. Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah.
The king took time to explain to his son that should his curse take upon the king, what will happen? Tadayana papam upayanamyam Yananasta nastayeva soravilpatat parasparam gandhi sapanti ranjate pasun sritoratham purudasho jana. My son, the world will be a sad state. He says, you know, when a kingdom doesn't have a king, what happens? The other, his enemies, sees this as an opportunity to attack his kingdom. And let us think in the time of that. When another kingdom is attacked, and when a kingdom is attacked, plundering goes on. Pillage and plundering, rape and all of these things. The entire kingdom will be at risk for your action. Look at the gross effect of your simple action that you think you are trying to be doing something. I will show him who I am. It's like a child taking a match and says, I'll show you that I can terrify, and tosses it in a tank of gasoline, and then it explodes. Before you know, the entire neighborhood is burning down. Many of us are playing with fire many times, and we don't know it. We need to manage our sense of ego. We need to manage our tamasic and rajasic tendencies and be calm, be collective, like Simika at all times. Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Govindaya Namo Namo. Shri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namo.
In these conditions, what can Simika do? He can go to the king and ask for forgiveness. But the king has been pronounced a curse. He's accepted that death is coming. So what's the next best thing he can do? Let's see what he does. Apeshu swabrateshu balena pavata burina papam kritam tad bhagwanam sarvatma kastum arthi savatma kastum arthi. Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namo. Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya
Namo Namo.
He starts to pray. Satchidananda Rupaya Vishwakya Vihetaya Tapatra Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Namah.
Shri Krishnaya
Vayam Namah. He appeals to that Lord who is the reliever of the three miseries. And what is the misery he's asking for relief from? Everybody tell me? Self-inflicted misery. Shringi, self-inflicted. Raja Parikshit, self-inflicted. And Simika prays to Bhagavan Krishna for the relief of all of this self-inflicted miseries. He prays not for himself. He prays not for anything but for them to be relieved of their self-inflicted miseries. Parents do this a lot for their children. They pray that they will be relieved of their self-inflicted injuries that they cause by their actions, by their harsh words, or sometimes not so rational actions. Here, Simika represents the epitome of what we call the sattvic state. Calm on all conditions. No judgment, no prosecution, only appreciation and glorification. Is this difficult to do? Does it take a special type of person to do this? We all have equal capabilities. God has granted us all the power of wisdom and intellect. God has all granted us charophal, dharma, artha, kama, or moksha. All of us equally, man and woman equally. And we all have the ability to rise above our tamasic and rajasic tendencies. Our katha tonight was intended to present to us that we are all victims from time to time of these tendencies, but we have the power to rise above them. And our objective in life is to continuously strive to rise above a tamas and rajasic state. And in every endeavor of our lives, these tendencies intervene. Between spouse and spouse, parents and children, brothers and sisters, friends and relatives, community leaders, people and politicians, these tendencies intervene. And when they are dominant, we see oppression and disaster. When tamasic and rajasic is dominant, we see oppression and disaster. When sattvic is present, we see longevity, joy, happiness, and serenity in the world. Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah. Bolo Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Govindaya Namo Namah.
Krishna Lal Ki Jai. We'll have one bhajan now from the boys and
हरि सुंदर नंद मुकुंदा हरि नारायण हरि ओम 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 हरि केशव हरि गोविंदा Hari Om.
Krishna Kanelal ki jai. Let me take this opportunity to welcome each and every one of you here. Sabhi log swagat hai. And those of you who have joined us on social media, we invite you to stay with us. Tomorrow night our katha will be on continued the Parikshit episode and what commitment he will make. And then hopefully, if time permits, we will discuss Gajendra Katha, a beautiful katha, and will talks about the same tendencies that we are addressing tonight, how they're presenting different forms. I noticed tonight that we have visiting from Rameshwar Mandir, Pandit Lekraj Hadapal Panditji. Welcome to our Mandir. Let's give him a big hand, please. I had the privilege to visit the Rameshwar Mandir a couple of days ago. They also had Bhagavad Katha. And I would like to ask Pandit Lekraj if he has brought a message for us. We'll have him please present it. Please, Avadi. Over here.
Hari Om, Reverend Vyasji, members of the audience, brothers, sisters. It's a pleasure being here tonight listening to Vyas Katha. And listening to Vyas Katha, it's always, it will always open our mind to the bigger aspect of life. And in life, we have to take all the essence of the scriptures because Vyas Maharaj put all the concept of life into the scriptures for us to take it and absorb it. And, listening to the Katha tonight is that one of the things from, the son of Samik Rishi is that you just don't jump to conclusion and say things. Like he pronounced a shrap on Raja Parikshit. So, we have to consider what we are doing or what we're saying before we come to, judgmental. So, we like to, it's just a pleasure here and being here with Vyas Maharaj. I'd just like to say a little prayer and, ask for the blessings of that Divine Lord. Hari Om, that's it. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanu Namardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo Shri Krishna Bhagwan ki jai. Thank you, Vyasji, Maharaj, Panditji. It's a pleasure. Hari Om.
We want to remind you that Krishna Janmashtami will be celebrated on Thursday. And, I'm sorry. I will now pass to Indira to tell you the details, and then I'll continue.
Sitaram and namaste, everyone. Welcome once again. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, we welcome you and hope that you will join us for the preceding evenings, especially on Thursday evening as we celebrate Krishna Janam on Thursday, August 18th. And then on Friday, we'll be having Govardhan Puja, August 19th, and Rukmini Vivaha on Saturday, August 20th. And on all those days will be then, our final event will be on Sunday, August 21st, with Sudama Charitra and Maha Havan. And if you'd like to participate in the Maha Havan on Sunday, please visit the office and they'll give you some more information on that event. We also want to remind you of a very important event happening in the life of the devotees of Ram Mandir and the Ram Mandir family. On Thursday, August 25th, Pandit Rupnath Sharma, our learned Vyas, will be celebrating his 70th birthday. All of that gray hair has been worth it. 70 years worth of gray hair. Let's give him a big round of applause. And on that day, we are inviting all of you to invite your family and friends to come out and join us in a wonderful celebration, Mataji Chowki. We have a very vibrant group who will be doing beautiful, beautiful renditions of Mataji bhajans, and very, as I said, very vibrant. That's a very festive occasion, and we hope that you'll come out and join in celebrating this momentous occasion of Panditji's birthday. And that is on Thursday, August 25th. Puja will start at 6:30 p.m. and we invite you to join us as well. But the satsang will start from 7 o'clock, so 7 to 9 p.m. And finally, we are celebrating today the birthday of a very special person. I don't know their hair. Happy birthday to Ashutosh. Ashutosh, are you here?
Ashutosh
Is
in
that
Ottawa.
Ashutosh? Our Ashutosh?
Yes.
Where is he?
He's in Ottawa right now.
He's in Ottawa.
His mother and father here.
So Ashutosh is celebrating his birthday. Ashutosh, on social media, if you're watching, happy birthday. And his mom and dad today are the Shrotas. And today, Priti Bhojan is sponsored by the Mandir devotees. Thank you.
Dhanyavad. Also, just a little bit add-on to what Indira said. For Krishna Janmashtami, what to bring to Mandir? Bring love in your heart. Bring prasad also to offer. Let us bring fruits as prasad, not bought sweets. Fruits, lots of fruits. All the extra fruits will be given to the food bank. And then Govardhan Puja Day, same thing. Lots of fruits to be offered that will be given away. The prasad that is bought from the stores, we cannot send them away or give them to anyone else because of COVID. We have to consume it, or if it's not consumed, then it will be thrown away. But fruits we can give, we can take also. So please remember to bring prasad and come prepared to make some offering on Govardhan Puja. And of course, Krishna Janam, in whatever simple way, come prepared to make an offering. I will ask you to join with me in concluding bhajans and remind you that Raja Parikshit is being sentenced to death. If you're being sentenced to death, what would you like to do before that moment comes? Please remember that all of us are in a sentence of death. It's just Raja Parikshit. It's imminent. It's in 7 days. Do we know when ours will be? What are we doing in preparation for that event? Let us ponder this thought. It might sound like a morbid thought, but it's not. It's reality. Hopefully over the few nights coming we shall discuss how we can prepare, not for death, but prepare our lives to be fulfilled. The death becomes insignificant if we have a fulfilled life. Hamaro dhan Radha, Sri Radha, Sri Radha. बोलो
जय जय श्री राधे
जय जय श्री राधे जय जय श्री राधे कृष्ण कन्हैया लाल की
जय.
When we chant kirtanam to the highest of our voice, it damages our voices, but it also gives us the opportunity to let it all out. It's an expression of letting it all out. And that is why kirtan is chanted in this manner for Krishna Bhagavan or even Bhagavan Shiva. And any deity, it is chanted with a high pitch of the voice to let it, at that stage, there is nothing on the mind. The mind is empty and pure and receptive to the good feeling that comes with glorifying Bhagavan. We thank you all for coming tonight and we invite you to join us again tomorrow. Prasad Shadhaka? Is anyone brought prasad that was not offered tonight? If you have, please come. Tivaraji will offer prasad. आओ भोग लगाओ मेरे मोहन Prasad is being offered to Hanumanji. If you have brought prasad for Hanumanji tonight, please come, place it in front of Hanumanji. तैयार है कितना थाली बनाकर We have 10 thalis prepared for Aarti today and that at any one time all of them must be in use. We invite everyone, सभी लोग खड़े हो जाए, आरती करेंगे. Parents and children must come together. Sanitizing is in process. Anita ji will be asking you to take some sanitizing in your hands before you proceed to Aarti. Shrotas, Bhagavat Bhagavan. Move up. Stay up.
जय जय
सभी लोग, बच्चों, सुनो, देखो, हाथ जोड़कर. We must clasp our hands in front of our chest. This is the prescribed way to pray. As we offer concluding prayers, I ask you to listen to the voices of Marissa, Dhruv and Rudra as they were leading the closing prayers. Om Hari Om
Hari Om Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gaganasadrisham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmikantam Kamalayanam Yogibhirdhyanagamyam Vande Vishnu Bhavabhayaharanam Sarvaloke Karnatham. Om Dyo Shanti Antariksamam Shanti Prithvi Shanti Rapah Shanti Roshadaya Shanti Vanaspatya Shanti Vishwadeva Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shanti Reva Shanti Sarva Shanti Devi. शीश झुकाकर धरती पर पड़ा. गुरुर ब्रह्मा गुरुर विष्णु गुरुदेवो
महेश्वरः
Guru Sakshat Param Brahma
तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः. तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः.
Sadgamaya Tapasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityuma Amritam Damaya
सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः.
Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet.
बोले सियापति रामचंद्र भगवान की जय. उमापति महादेव की जय. गणपति भगवान की जय. राधा कृष्ण भगवान की जय. लक्ष्मी नारायण भगवान की जय. पवन पुत्र हनुमान की जय. सद्गुरुदेव भगवान की जय. सत्य सनातन धर्म की जय. धर्म की जय. अधर्म का नाश, प्राणियों में सद्भावना हो, विश्व का कल्याण हो. धरती माता की जय हो. भारत माता की जय हो. श्रीमद्-भागवत महापुराण की जय हो. व्यास जी महाराज की जय हो. सत्य सनातन धर्म की जय. नमः पार्वती पते. हर हर महादेव. हर हर महादेव.
मन शांति, आराम करें. Everyone, please. Preeti Bhojan is prepared for everyone. It's a takeaway book.